This is the Transformers Generations Legacy United Voyager class Origin or Cybertronian Wheeljack. Now, this figure is supposedly a Target exclusive, but since we don't have Target here in Manila or in Asia for that matter, I picked up and pre-ordered this figure through Hobby Corner via their Shopee online store, and it came in the mail. And you can see that the packaging has some tears and some dings and, you know, dents and all that. And I'm not sure it's the shop's fault, but I think this is one of those Legacy United products that still uses the old soft cardboard packaging from the Legacy and Legacy Evolution lines, because the new Legacy United packaging now is a lot stiffer than this, and it's a shame. They did put it in bubble wrap. It was really thick bubble wrap, but they placed it in a makeshift cardboard box. It was cut up. It was made to fit exactly the size of this box, and I think they should stop doing that. If Hobby Corner is watching my video, I would advise that if it's okay to make a makeshift box, but you need to put some allowance. You need to make the box slightly bigger than the actual product. And then you put the bubble wrap so that it has room to just, you know, move about and allow the bubble wrap to do some suspension, because as it is, it exactly fits the makeshift box, and the box gets thrown around, and the slightest dent, even if there's bubble wrap, it will damage the box. So if Hobby Corner is watching this video, that might be a tip you might want to consider for future parcels you're going to ship. But anyway, let's get this guy out of packaging. And here is Wheeljack in his Cybertronian mode out of the box. And boy, what a figure. He is chunky, beefy in all places like that. He's got tons of kibble. He feels like a deluxe class figure, but the engineering on this thing is very much a Voyager class. And boy, look how beefy and chunky this guy is. Not entirely sure if this is the Wheeljack we all want, but yeah, he, as far as the Cybertronian mode or version of Wheeljack goes, I think he kind of works. I do get it that they had some constraints with the alt mode, but yeah, so far, I mean, it works as a Cybertronian mode. Let's take a closer look at the details of this new Legacy United Origins Wheeljack. Head to toe, the figure stands at about 13 centimeters tall, or about 5 1/8 inches tall. For comparisons, here he is with the Earthrise Netflix War for Cybertron Trilogy Earth mode Bumblebee, which is actually how Bumblebee looked like during that scene on Cybertron. Here he is with his Earth mode versions. We've got the Earthrise or Kingdom Deluxe Wheeljack, and we've got the Selects, Generation Selects Legacy 5-pack Wheeljack, and you can see they're actually the same height. He's a Voyager class figure, but they made him in scale and perfect height with a deluxe class figure. And finally, here he is with fellow Origins Cybertronian version modes of Jazz and Bumblebee, all Target exclusives. Hooray for exclusives. And they actually look good together. They don't exactly... Jazz looks how he looked like in that scene, but Bumblebee obviously does not look like how he looked like in that first episode. So does Wheeljack to a certain extent. And I'm actually shocked that Jazz is about 2 millimeters taller than this Wheeljack. Onto the details of this figure, he does come with a pair of wings. Well, not actually a pair, it's one piece or 3 pieces that are combined into one big piece to form his wings. They will actually form the blast shields in alt mode, and incidentally, these pieces come misassembled in packaging. They come in a straight line, which I will show off later during alt mode, and you have to detach them and reassemble them to form this configuration, which was weird, but we'll talk more about that later in alt mode. He also comes with a pair of mini fans, And these come into play in alt mode, which I'll show off later. He comes with a blaster that's made of clear green plastic, same as his windshield, which is interesting. I hope it doesn't break in time. It is blast effect compatible. If you have some blast effects from your Siege figures, it will fit that. Also, the instructions tell you that his main gimmick really in robot mode for the weapons is he forms like a mini fan, like a Jisoo Life mini fan, because it is the summer season. He can use this to just cool himself off during those summer days on Cybertron, and it actually works pretty nicely. And you see a lot of people holding those fans, especially here in Manila. You know, we have these small mini fans just to cool off during the summer. This actually works the same way on Cybertron. So yeah, both these fans do store in the back. This weapon blaster also forms his shoulder cannon, which is iconic to his aesthetic in G1, which is actually pretty cool, but we don't have to do that. He also has these mini wings, which they didn't actually have to do. They actually just serve as tabs or notches to hold the backpack in place, but not really necessary since he already has these big wings. But that is part of the G1 aesthetic for Wheeljack. Also, I will note that this head sculpt is absolutely gorgeous. This is the kind of Wheeljack head sculpt that I've wanted for the United 5-pack. I mean, this one's fine. Obviously, it's a retool. It's a repaint of the original Earthrise and Kingdom mold. But when you look at all three, the Origins Wheeljack head sculpt, this one's just really, I think, the best looking one out of the three. And I did mention in my review of the 5-pack Wheeljack that if they had done something like this, this would have made it a very perfect figure. But don't know if you can swap it though. Maybe you can, but it will be out of proportion. And it's a shame. I wish they could have done something like this with this figure. Articulation for the figure, the neck is on a ball joint. You got a waist swivel. The arms go in and out, forward and backward 360. You got a bicep swivel, hinge elbow, swivel wrists. Hips have hinges to allow the legs to do the splits, kick forward and backward, thigh swivel, hinge knees, and the ankles are on ball joints, which are effectively rocker joints, and you do the up and down motion. Paint apps for the figure, most of them are pretty much spot on. He's got some red, green, white. Even with the white paint, I have no issue. I think I got one that didn't have any issues on it. So pretty good. Silver paint on the head sculpt. Very, very nice. And then let's talk about plastic quality very, very briefly. I was expecting plastic quality on this one to be at this level. This is premium grade solid plastic. But it's more of like the Bumblebee plastic quality. It's a little on the soft side, soft bendy side. It's not cheap by any means. It does look cheap though, but it's pretty solid, but it's a little on the softer side, much like the Origins Bumblebee. And I was kind of hoping to be more like the Origins Jazz. So transformation, it's pretty involved. I kid you not. So here goes. Put the weapons off to the side. Rotate the neck backwards. Unpeg these pieces right here. You want to go ahead and fold these pieces down. The arms, you're going to open up these panels. You're going to fold the fists inward. Rotate the wrists so they fit nicely. You don't have to close the panels back in just yet. You want to fold the arms upward. And this is kind of tricky. You want to fold here. And you kind of want to just form the top part. You want to go ahead and fold down the chest and then just fold and lower the neck this way and the head assembly that way. Okay, and then you want to fold and form this. This is going to be the bumper of the vehicle, which we'll do so later. Then you want to unfold these back panels right here. And they're going to want to tab onto the arms to form, like I said, the bumper and the front windshield of the car. Rotate that waist assembly. Okay, and then this piece can now sit flush right there, which we'll do so later. Okay, once you've done that, unfold the entire leg assembly. And this is a little bit tedious, but just bear with me here. Okay, you want to unpeg these pieces right here. It's a lot of moving around pieces here and there. So just be patient with it. Go ahead and unfold like this. Okay, these inner bits right here are gonna unfold, and then the feet, you're gonna rotate and tuck them away. Feet are gonna rotate and then tuck them away, okay? And then these pieces right here, they're gonna fold back out. You wanna fold them out like this to form the tailgate or the rear cover of the van. And you're supposed to combine these legs together, but since there's so many panels going on in and about, they designed it so that you could bend the knees inward so that you can accommodate all those panels and you'd be able to just tab everything in. So make sure the legs are lined up, the thighs are just lined up properly so everything's flush. They're spaced, make sure that the knees are just spaced out properly so that they all fold nicely. Okay, now straighten down the legs. These panels right here, the side panels, they are going to form the side panels of the truck, the Cybertronian truck. So you want to go ahead and tab them in here onto the windshield, and that will stabilize the front part of the truck. Okay, the back panel, go ahead and keep tabbing them in. These panels right here, they're going to rotate and they're supposed to tab or sit nicely here on the sides. And then the tailgate, if you can just properly align it, you're gonna fold it up. Make sure everything is just lined up squarely because this top part, the roof, is gonna fold down and tab onto all those tabs simultaneously. So if you haven't lined them up properly, you're not gonna be able to do so. So let me see if I can just tab everything squarely. And if you've done that, you're in very, very good shape. Make sure all the tabs have tabbed onto the slots and divots and all that. And finally, this piece right here, the G1 windshield, is just going to unfold and secure the leg or the feet. Tab onto those holes in the toes. And that's that. That is Wheeljack, Origin Wheeljack in his Cybertronian van alt mode that it's like a hover van, 1 mega mile away from Iacon, home sweet home. And then, yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty involved transformation, and I do appreciate the sort of Herculean effort that Hasbro and Takara have done just to make and give us this alt mode, and then transform and fold all these panels and just compress everything into a sort of robot mode that resembles the G1 Wheeljack. It's a great effort, but just like my experience with Origins Jazz and Bumblebee, that whole tedious transformation just sucks all the fun away from this figure. It's a nicely engineered figure, but in terms of the fun factor, I don't think it's a lot of fun. I keep saying it was very involved and tedious. You're probably thinking it wasn't that bad. Di naman siya ganun kahirap, pambira naman to si Chefatron. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I just did it a couple times prior to filming. That's why I made it look easy, but it is very tedious the first time you do it. So yeah, pretty cool looking hover van Cybertronian alt mode. And for comparisons in alt mode, here he is with the Earth Mode Wheeljack, the Earthrise Kingdom Wheeljack, as well as the Selects Legacy Wheeljack. Here he is once again with the Cybertronian versions of Jazz and Bumblebee, and he does scale very nicely with these two other figures. So in alt mode, Wheeljack actually has a bunch of really cool features. Now, if you remember that first episode of the old Generation 1 cartoon, the very, very first episode, Bumblebee and Wheeljack were on a scouting mission to find energy, sources of energy, and they found these conductors. And Wheeljack, both Wheeljack and Bumblebee were in their Earth mode, robot mode, and somehow they transformed into their Cybertronian alt modes. And here's Wheeljack transforming into that really cool Cybertronian alt mode. And based on the render, I think they did a good job with this alt mode. The shoulders, yeah, they're sticking out right there as white plastic. It could have been done in gray, but I think it would have ruined their robot modes aesthetic had they painted that gray. But the hood's aesthetic, that sort of sticker tampoed on, Looks very similar to the cartoon render as well as the spoiler. If you remember, the conductors, actually Bumblebee loaded them onto the back of Wheeljack, and you can, if you wanted to, I guess you could do that, but I don't think they will fit because the conductors are just so big. I don't think they measured this one properly when they gave these conductors to the Cybertronian Bumblebee figure. Yep. It can fit. If you wanted to, you put it diagonally, sure it can, but if you wanted to recreate that scene where Bumblebee sits in the tailgate, Earth mode Bumblebee, yeah, sure, maybe you could do that. It kind of works. And in that same episode, as Bumblebee and Wheeljack are rushing back to Iacon with their conductors, they are greeted by a Decepticon blockade, and Wheeljack raises up his shields. They're like a semi-opaque windshields that really cover up his entire front part of the vehicle, and that's where this piece comes in, which forms his sort of wings. And you can plug it in like this on Wheeljack, and it kind of sort of works. It's not as opaque as it was in the cartoon, but yeah, it does what it needs to do. I thought it was pretty cool. Not necessary, but that is a nice touch. And as they meet the Decepticons in the blockade, one of the Seekers has a flamethrower, which is kind of weird, but I mean, back in the day it was okay, but now you look back, it looks weird. That flamethrower shoots like a ring of fire, and the ring of fire surrounds Bumblebee and Wheeljack. And to escape, Wheeljack unleashes or turns on his propeller jets. They come out in the front of his bumper like sort of spikes, and then out comes these blades, and the blades start spinning sort of like mini fans, and that's what Wheeljack uses to blow away the flames so that it creates a path for him and Bumblebee to escape. And that's where these two accessories again come into play. Apart from being the Jisoo Life fan accessory, which Wheeljack can cool himself during the summertime, these are actually the simulation of those propellers that Wheeljack uses to create an opening in that ring of fire. And it kind of does do its job. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's not exactly like rotor propellers. It now actually looks more Cybertronian. They look like cogs or gears from a clock or an engine or something like that, more than propellers. But yeah, it does what it needs to do. And once again, all three of them in battle mode with their weapons on. And in that chase scene towards Iacon, the Seekers bombard them with laser fire. And Bumblebee actually gets hit. And he says his rear axle gets hurt. I mean, doesn't even have an axle. Anyway, whatever. But Wheeljack opens up his rear trunk, or the rear cavity of the vehicle mode, and lets Bumblebee in. You can actually do that here as well. But in the cartoon, the entire alt mode of Bumblebee just fits in sort of in the diagonal position, and then Wheeljack closes in. Well, obviously it can't fit with these two figures. But the instructions don't mention anything about fitting the Origins Bumblebee into Wheeljack, but there is a way to do it. You can unpeg his wings and then fold them back up as you would transform him into his robot mode. And in his more slender mode, you can actually fit the Origins Bumblebee inside Wheeljack. You just have to squeeze him in and make sure none of the parts are like blocking the tabs and the pegs of the roof. It's a nice snug fit. But as you can see right there, it's as though Bumblebee's piloting Wheeljack. He can actually fit inside Wheeljack. That is a nice, cool little feature. I mean, it's a little novelty. I mean, it's not something you would do all the time, but if you wanted to recreate that scene, you could actually do so. Also, the instructions do mention this though, because like I mentioned earlier, these pieces are actually misassembled when you get them in, well, actually not misassembled, but not assembled this way for robot mode and for shield mode. They are actually assembled inversely. If I can just, you can't remove these pieces, which is, I think, very dangerous because you run the risk of breaking the tabs. I don't know why Hasbro even decided to do this. It's probably for packaging purposes so that these panels would fit in, but they didn't have to do it this way. They misassembled it this way inside the packaging, and they say in the instructions you can now use it as a road for Wheeljack to travel on, which is pretty lame. I honestly don't think they should have done this. They should have just assembled this one properly, or just not have assembled it, because, you know, if you're not careful, I mean, some of the younger fans of Transformers might just you know, rip these things apart, and it could be susceptible to breakage and all of that. And I didn't think that was such a good idea for this set. They should have just packaged it this way, unassembled. They could assemble it or just assemble it properly. And so some final thoughts on this Legacy United Origins Wheeljack. It's a pretty decent figure. I'm not going to say I was blown away by it. It's a Cybertronian figure, so it will have a lot of constraints. I do appreciate the fact that Hasbro and Takara did a tremendous job. It's a very, very good effort on their part to really bring us a Cybertronian mold Wheeljack that reflects a lot of the G1 aesthetic, as well as the aesthetic that he did in alt mode, his Cybertronian alt mode. The figure itself, I think the plastic quality is okay, details are okay, articulation and gimmicks are fine. The transformation, it's a pretty involved transformation, but I do appreciate the fact that they spent a lot of budget and effort and engineering trying to compress all of those panels and just hide all the car bits in his robot mode without really turning this figure into a shell former. They decided to turn it into a jigsaw puzzle former, but I think that's a better compromise than him being a shell former. So the figure itself, for me, because of the too involved transformation, I think it deserves a 9 out of 10. Now let me just talk about these three Origins figures in general. They're Target exclusives, so if you don't have a Target store like here in Asia, they're probably going to be a little pricier, and they're going to be found in hobby shops and specialty stores. So they're not easy to come by unless you live near a Target that has a well-stocked row or aisle of Transformers. They're Cybertronian mode versions of our favorite characters, so is it something that's necessary for a G1 collector? Personally, I think these are for the hardcore completist G1 generations figures collectors. It's not for the casual collector. I mean, you're going to spend a lot of money just trying to acquire them. The transformation, for me, really sucks the fun out of all these three figures, with Jazz being probably the most difficult one to transform, and then Bumblebee, and then Wheeljack is probably the easiest. Despite that whole mess of a transformation you saw me do earlier, he's still the easiest one to transform. And given all that, these figures are just not a lot of fun to play with. They are very nice looking figures. I think their alt modes are the ones that really, really sell these figures, because those are really the ones that highlight them. They're Cybertronian alt mode. But the robot modes, well, Jazz is an exception. He just looks so great in robot mode. But the other two just kind of look, you know, weird, and they kind of look too chunky in robot mode, which really didn't reflect how they look like on the cartoon. But their alt modes are absolutely perfect. Getting them into their alt modes, that's what really detracts from these figures. And I think all three of them deserve maybe just a 9 out of 10. Should you get these figures? If you're a big hardcore G1 fan and you want to recreate that scene in the first episode of Generation 1 Transformers back in 1984, then sure, why not? But if you're the casual collector, I say probably wait for this one to go on clearance. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this Transformers Generations Legacy United Voyager class Origins Cybertronian mode Wheeljack, as well as the whole line of Origins figures that includes Jazz and Bumblebee. And as always, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.